Welcome to Transqat. I'm Claire McCarthy. GLSEN's 2021 National School Climate Survey found the following. 68% of queer students surveyed reported feeling unsafe or harassed at school. 50.6% because of sexual orientation, 43.2% because of gender expression, and 40.3% because of gender. Approximately 40% of survey respondents said they avoided school bathrooms, locker rooms, and PE classes. 78.8% reported avoiding school functions and extracurricular activities. Almost a third reported missing school days because they felt unsafe, and nearly a fifth have changed schools because of these issues. Now, as a retired teacher, I know that the vast majority of America's faculty members are caring and ridiculously generous with their time and energy. Teachers care about their students. So then why is it that with 20 years of data collected by GLSEN on this issue, why are the results still so damned awful? Well, we're sitting here today in Killingworth, and the subject today is Proud Academy, which I learned in doing my research that it's an acronym. Patty, can you tell me what PROUD stands for?
Yes, PROUD stands for Proudly Respecting Our Unique Differences.
I liked the unique differences. I mean, I know it fills out the acronym, but even within marginalized communities, there is diversity. There are things we have in common. There are things that make us unique.
Because even the students who come to Proud Academy, they will all have common denominators. Within that, they'll still be unique.
This is the first time on Transqat that we've had a roundtable. So if you would, maybe you could all just go around and introduce yourselves and what your connection to Proud Academy is.
Sure. My name's Pat Nicolari, and I am the founder and the executive director of Proud Academy, which is a nonprofit with the goal of opening and operating a private school. It'll be the first one in Connecticut for our LGBTQ youth and their allies. And of course, our mission is to create a safe and affirming space for all students, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, race, religion, etc., to have a challenging curriculum and one where students are allowed to have a voice and the opportunity to express that voice.
And to your left, my right.
I'm Rebecca Degnan, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. I own Prism Counseling and Support, and am also the mother of a wonderful transgender son who is sitting next to me and will introduce himself in a moment. I became involved with Proud just from a random cold call that I made to Patty. I'm the former teacher of one of the other board members for Proud, and kept seeing Patty's posts about Proud Academy. And I just reached out to her one day and said, I don't really have a reason for contacting you, except I feel like we should know each other. And it just kind of went from there. And she said, I've actually been looking for a counselor to, get involved with the formation of the school and run things by. So it just seemed to be serendipitous that we connected, and a little random, but not random. I think it was meant to be. And so that's how I, have become involved.
Hey, I'm Taryn. I'm Taryn Degnan. I am the son of Rebecca.
Junior in high school, did you say?
Yes, I'm a junior in high school.
Which, if I remember correctly, is the most stress-free year of the 4 years.
No,
Come on.
Absolutely not.
Am I misremembering that? Patty, let me start with you. This idea, the Proud Academy, is 10 or more years in the making at this point. Can you just give us a quick rundown of the inception, the history, and the status at the moment of where we are with the school?
Sure. Years ago, maybe 13 years ago, I had this idea. Sometimes doors close on us and move us in a direction that we need to go in. And so I had an idea of opening Pride Academy, is what we were going to call it at the time. And actually, it was a personal journey that led me to stop that mission because I was engaged to a woman at the time and had our life planned. And out of left field, I fell in love with a guy. And I did not see that coming. And I was a spokesperson for 28 years about LGBTQ rights, and I put on workshops across the country, and I was up front and center in the New Haven Register. I came out alongside Ellen DeGeneres. And so I did the reverse of everybody else. I went from gay to what I thought was straight. It's like, who am I now? You know? And here I am, I'm about to be the head of this LGBTQ school. And I couldn't answer the questions personally when people would say, so are you straight now? And I said, I don't know. And I was too embarrassed to be the head of a school not being able to answer that question. So I put it on the back burner.
Oh, wow.
And what I'm learning now, this generation is awesome because you don't have to check a box. You don't have to answer those questions. You could say, today I'm feeling this way. It may not be how I feel tomorrow, and have that be okay. So the fluidity is something I admire about these young people like Taryn. And I'm going to be learning so much from being in their company. So they're actually going to teach me going forward. So bring it on. So here we are now, Proud Academy. We thought that that might be a more inclusive name for allies and, you know, other people who may want to come to the school.
Other
Still sends the
diversity.
message that, you know, we're inclusive to LGBTQ, but so we have an amazing board of directors. We're looking at a building. We're really moving forward. So it's going to happen this time.
Fantastic. Your original plan was that it be a charter school. That didn't happen. And so we're going for a private school. Tell me about the difference between those.
We had a thought of going either magnet or charter because then you get funding from the state and all of that. It takes a few years to fill out the charter school application. However, with a charter or a magnet school, it's a lottery. So you have to accept everybody if you're accepting state funding. So in speaking with the other schools in the country, they said, yes, we're charter schools as well. However, you have a trans student sitting in the classroom next to somebody who's so anti-trans. So even though you have all these policies in place and, you know, you do your best to address the anti-bullying and address it on the spot, we want to start off saying, these are the people that we are going to take in and start off with a population that's all on the same page. Right. And with a private school, you have the right to select who comes to the school.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, the website says that you're shooting for September of 2023.
It's an ambitious agenda.
Yeah.
So we're now in the process of hiring a full-time fundraiser who actually has 2 transgender children that would embrace coming to Proud Academy. So nobody will be more passionate about raising money than somebody who wants to send their kids to this school.
Right. Do you want to make a place in all this for cishet kids of queer parents? Is there any, because we've been talking about the experience that kids have in schools under these restrictive laws where the teachers aren't allowed to say certain things. And so I could be a cishet kid and nobody is recognizing what my family looks like. And all the teachers are either too scared or they support this silence. So is there a place in Proud Academy for kids like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, open to our allies. We have somebody who's on our advisory council who is a gay man married to his husband, and they have a daughter together. So the idea of his daughter going to a school like Proud Academy, because when she draws a picture of her family with 2 dads, we just get it. Or I've been hearing from many people that a student like Taryn who's transgender, and let's say they have a sibling, right? The sibling is the target of feeling uncomfortable because now that sibling is talking about their family and the kids give them a hard time. That's not really a brother, you have a sister. And so that kid ends up being the victim of bullying. So we plan on this being an all-encompassing school for anybody who needs a safer, bully-free environment. Where kids get to be kids and students.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Not only supports people of the LGBTQ community, but also POC people, of different like religions or religious backgrounds, or like it sounds like a better alternative.
I hear a lot from biracial students.
Oh,
you know,
right. Of
I don't
course.
fit in with blacks. I don't fit in with whites. You know, pick a team, but you don't belong in either one. So there's another group who feels marginalized.
Right.
I mean, the list is sadly endless.
It is.
That lives within us. That's hard to erase.
Yeah, like when I went into like the all boys area, I got rocks thrown at me.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I remember going home and like crying about it to my mom.
I remember him coming home on a regular basis crying because he wanted to play football. And the boys, wall ball and then
It was wall
football.
ball.
Eventually it was football too, but
So we're not
Also
even
soccer.
talking,
It
And
was just
soccer.
sports in general, Ma.
and we're not even talking, organized team
this
sports
is
like that. This is recess.
Yep, this is recess. There was one time that a boy said, they can be on my team. And it made so much of a difference. I don't know if I ever told you, but I reached out to the boy's mother
did.
and said, I can't tell you how much we appreciate what your son did for my kid today.
Yeah.
Because that only happened once in all of elementary school.
Rebecca, what kinds of services, what kinds of structural supports do queer kids need in a school like this?
I think one of the biggest pieces is that the whole staff should be educated in trauma-informed practices, because these kids are almost all coming in with trauma from, existing as LGBT and trans kids in, public schools that they may be coming from and in society.
Well, I was going to say, do you see that as I don't want to toss the word failing out there, but let's do it anyway. Do you see that as a failing of public schools, or is it just that's the society we live in and it seeps in?
I see it as a lack of education, especially, well, I think in society as a whole, but especially in educational institutions. I know I have, the district that I used to work for, Taryn happened to be actually the first student to come out as transgender in our high school. Yep.
It's a one-person standing ovation, but
We were
Yeah.
very, very proud, but also very scared. And so, one thing that I did was, and this was before I had really educated myself to the level that I have at this point, I just started researching like crazy. And before he came out to the school, I requested that I do professional development training with all of the staff.
Good.
Because I felt like just to throw him out there without the staff even having a foundational understanding of what it means to be transgender was terrifying to me as a parent. And I think that, the staff was incredibly receptive to that information, but I would say that with very few exceptions, it was all brand new information to the staff.
Which is a quarter of the way through the 21st century.
Right.
I can't tell you how depressing that is.
It is. And I don't think it's a lack of wanting to understand. I just think it's a lack of having access to the training that would educate the staff. And I think that's an important piece. So I feel like, Proud Academy certainly will have, that foundation for the staff and the training, I'm sure, to keep them up to date, because let's face it, it's ever evolving. Taryn teaches me vocabulary all the time, and I like to think I'm, completely up on all of it, but then he'll throw something out there and be
Something
like, what
new.
does that mean? So, so ongoing training for the staff, ongoing training in trauma and the impact of trauma on how students learn or are unable to learn, and on their social interactions, and obviously their mental health. So I know that, we're in discussions around what those mental health supports will look like specifically, but I think that it's going to be important that there's a variety of tiers to the supports that are available.
And it'll be, for want of a better metaphor, it'll be baked into the structure of the school. Whereas with most public schools, it's you bring in an outside trainer, your faculty and staff are going to do the best they can because 99% of them have hearts as large as the outdoors. but they have so many of these trainings that they need to be aware of, and this is one more.
Right, and they're often one and done.
Yes,
Right?
very much.
So
No
we
follow-up.
checked that box,
Yep.
we did it, so we don't have to do that again. And, GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, recommends that these trainings are done regularly for staff. And the other downfall with a lot of schools, and this is not anybody's fault, but is the fact that those professional development trainings are for certified teachers, not for paras, not for lunchroom staff, not for office staff, custodial staff.
yeah.
They're not involved in those.
Coaches.
And when I do trainings at schools, I always recommend that everyone is invited. I know that they can't require people to be there because of contracts and unions.
Right.
But I recommend that they're at least invited, because everybody who interacts with a kid should have this training.
The follow-up, I know, is key, because very often, particularly in the most well-behaved, polite faculties, they're afraid to ask anything the first time. They're going to sit there and they're going to listen to you respectfully. Maybe they're going to take notes. Maybe they're going to learn something. But the idea of raising your hand and saying, okay, well, I'm not sure I understand this, they don't want to call that attention to themselves, but might in follow-ups, when you're working with them in smaller groups, and so follow-up is key. Taryn, I want to turn to you for a second.
All right.
Tell me a little bit about how you became aware that you were trans, when you came out, and what that was like.
So I know the experience is different for everyone, but my experience with discovering that I was transgender really did start at a young age. I only wanted to hang out with, the guys at recess. There was one instance where in kindergarten, there was, an area that was boys only, and I just walked right in because I wanted to. I was always too masculine to be friends with the girls, but too much of a girl to be friends with the guys, so I was kind of just always left in the dust. In 5th grade, I saw an ad on testosterone one day, and I randomly just went up to my mom, and I was like, hey, I think I'm a boy. And she said, okay, do you want to do anything about it? And I said, no. And that is a decision that I definitely regret, because I would have been a lot farther on my transition if I had actually done something about it, but I was too scared.
I understand.
And
Yeah.
so I stayed closeted until midway through freshman year. I came out openly to first my friends, then my family, who were all really, really supportive. And then I openly came out to the school around the start of the new year. It was after winter break. So about exactly 2 years ago today.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I didn't come out till I was 55. Being closeted does a lot of damage. So good on you for getting out there and being healthy and being out. Patty, with what we've been talking about, how do you see things like hiring faculty and staff, and particularly administrators? How do you go about systematically choosing the folks, or have you gotten to that point yet?
Well, it's interesting because we're not even advertising yet for teachers, and I have a stack of resumes that just keep coming in. We have 3 people who want to be the principal of the school, and they're all in the LGBT community. They're principals already in Connecticut public schools. We have a school nurse who sent in the resume. We have teachers. I just interviewed a potential science teacher, pansexual, African American, Latino woman. So it will be a diverse school population who gets it. And if somebody is cisgendered, straight, and all of that, anybody who's embracing of the student population, because you know what, the teachers need to feel safe too.
Sure.
I've heard so many stories of teachers who tell me about their experience. A woman who's legally married to another woman, and in Connecticut that could be, but can't talk about that in your class, even if a student brings that up, because in 1st grade it's too young if you bring that up.
Right.
And when students ask, well, who's your husband? And she says, well, I have a wife. You know, you don't want the principal to come to you and say, can we not talk about that? And so there's so much room for improvement. Teachers need to feel safe. Principals need to feel safe. Students need to feel safe. So unfortunately, a school like Proud Academy is needed. Nirvana is when it's not needed. We're not there yet. And, you know, even though there are laws on the book, like Connecticut General Statutes 10-145D-400A of the Code of Professional Responsibilities for teachers,
I'm impressed.
not many people know that. You know, if you were to ask teacher, what is that statute? And if I were to ask 200 people in an audience, I'm sure maybe the LGBTQ population might raise their hand, or maybe somebody who is in the minority population, racial minority, right, might raise their hand because they've had to research what are school systems responsible for. And that is one of the things. And it is teachers shall nurture in students lifelong compassion for themselves and for others, regardless of race, religion, sexual orientation. I don't think gender identity is in that one because that's an old statute.
Right.
However, in 2017, the Connecticut State Department of Education did put out a booklet and more language around transgender. And so I think we need to learn how to walk that talk. I do believe that maybe 75% of teachers and principals out there want to do the right thing. And as Rebecca said, they need training. So that's where the gap is, not the one day, one and done, okay, cross it off the list.
Yeah, and that works for administrators as well. You know, when someone comes out in their school, at that moment, there are all these arrangements that a good administrator goes through. You know, which bathroom are you comfortable using? Mm-hmm. Do you want to go to the nurse's bathroom? Do you want to, you know, use the bathroom of your choice? And 25 other things like that. But then in the administrator's mind, they've solved that problem, and it's time to move on to the next crisis. Their job is like a mass triage. It's just constantly disaster.
And here's another example of what principals and teachers sometimes do, because in my experience as a former teacher in the LGBTQ community, when I was in the closet, I had Les scratched in my car, as big as could be, because my car was being worked on in the shop by the boys in the shop at the high school.
Back when we had auto shops.
And then kids shouting, "We have a dyke for a teacher," and notes left on my desk, "We, the class of so-and-so, want to know if it's true that you're gay." So, of course, I'm in the closet, and I'm in panic mode thinking, I don't think I could be a teacher. Like, I have so much anxiety going to school, and I'm the adult. You know, I can't imagine what kids are going through. But here's a problem. So as an lesbian teacher at the time, I would go to the shop teacher and I would say, they did some damage to my car. They scratched Les in it. And the teacher would say, well, why would they do that? So so I'm being re-victimized all over again. Now I'm put on the defense. Or I would say to the principal at the time, you know, they're shouting, "We have a dyke for a teacher. Can you help me figure out how to deal with that?" Nobody had any idea. Of course, that was 25 years ago. Okay. Oh, prior to 1991, you could be fired in Connecticut just for being a gay teacher.
Yeah, right.
I think another place that a lot of schools fall short is that there are not specific policies in place either. So when a transgender student does come out to the principal or to whomever they come out to, they almost have to figure it out on the fly. How are we going to support the student? Rather than having policies and procedures in place already so that it's already known how to respond. Right. And I think that that's a place of growth for a lot of districts. Some are embracing that and some are not yet. I think Proud Academy is obviously going to be very built in to the structure of that school. But I think that that's where a lot of students and families feel even more afraid to come out, is because there's nothing they can look to say, okay, so if I tell the school about my child's identity, how are they going to handle it? And there's nothing out there on the website or in the policies or through the Board of Education or anything that tells them what will be done.
And that absence of policy is the best case scenario. But there are plenty of states where that's not the case. Right. And so not only do they not have that plan in place, they have no intention of putting it in place. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of states out there that are openly unfriendly. Mm-hmm. So you're not just talking...
Well, we ended up with the high-profile case of the Shapley family. And Kai Shapley is now a 12-year-old transgender youth who flew from Texas with her mom, Kim, and brother Caleb, and they landed in New Haven, Connecticut. And I got to know them because they called the New Haven Pride Center saying, help, I want to get my kids into a safe and affirming school. And they said, call Patty Nicolari at, Proud Academy. Unfortunately, we weren't open yet, but I think we will probably, if we build it, we think they will come, and from other states.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Absolutely. Taryn, let me go back to you for a sec. You were saying that you knew as early as like 5, or at least had inklings. And the incident where you saw this ad for tea, how old were you then?
I was 5th grade, which would have been 9 or 10.
So still single digits, and by that point, you're pretty sure you know who you are, even if you haven't acquired the vocabulary to express it.
Yeah.
Inside.
Like, when I saw the ad, I didn't even know what the word transgender meant. I've never heard it before in my life.
Did you just use Google to teach yourself, or did you talk to other folks? How did you get that information?
I asked my mom.
I think what I said was something along the lines of, some people are born in a girl's body, but they don't feel like a girl on the inside. And it was around when Caitlyn Jenner was transitioning. So I think that was kind of, it was in the news a little bit more, and I think you saw something around that.
What would have been different? I mean, you can decide whether you want to talk better or worse, but what would have been different if you had been in a school whose core mission statement was to protect
the dignity
we're gonna,
of the student.
Dignity of the student, an open and affirming thing where that wasn't something they were paying lip service to, but was at the heart of what they do.
It would have definitely taken a lot of stress off of my shoulders. It's still being in a school district that doesn't have that as like one of their like main core values.
Right.
I mean, it's a value, but it's not like a core one. Being in a school that definitely adds a lot of stress, and especially being in the closet for knowing what I am for around 4 years, it's difficult.
Sure.
Because a lot of people don't know or understand, or maybe they don't want to know or understand.
Have there been sort of traditional high school things that you felt you've missed out on, like dances or proms or sport, because of the stress, because you didn't want to step forward?
Yeah, definitely. I like sports. I just don't feel comfortable doing them, especially like now surrounding all the controversy against like trans people and sports.
Right.
And I don't want to like cause another like big dramatic problem in our school district over LGBTQIA plus students.
Right. We should toss out to the listeners that here in Connecticut, recently a lawsuit was settled, a lawsuit brought by parents of a couple of cisgender female athletes, complaining that trans female athletes had an unfair advantage. So that's what Taryn's referencing there. Rebecca, let me go back to you, because you dropped a word earlier that I just want to go back to and pick up. You said trauma. And one of the impressions that I get from generally well-meaning cishet people is that, that it sounds really tough to be trans or lesbian or bi or whatever, but everybody's got something. Why does your something rise to the level of trauma and mine doesn't? Could you just speak to the specific trauma that you see queer kids go through?
I think that the trauma that they experience it's in so many small and large areas of their life. It's in everyday interactions with strangers, with loved ones, with teachers. And, it's also in the larger way, the trauma of watching all of these anti-trans laws across the country. It feels incessant to them. And my practice for counseling, I work solely with the LGBT community, and a very large portion of my caseload, the clients meet the clinical criteria for PTSD. And one of the criteria is you have to have had a traumatic event. And when I go back and I ask them, about what traumatic events may have happened in their lives, I mean, the list feels never ending for them. And it's just so many different events. I see and I experience with my clients and with students that I know from, having worked in the school district and certainly from Taryn, I see the impact of the PTSD cognitively, emotionally, socially, clear as day. And so you don't see that with people generally who are just dealing with, the typical stressors
Right.
that most of us experience in every day. We can still function. We have that functionality. We can focus in school. We have the executive functioning intact. We can cope with the stress. And for so many of our trans kids, especially, and LGBT kids, the coping is not there, and their cognitive skills are impacted.
Which, to bring it back, Patty, to you, that if your cognitive skills are impaired, you're not going to be as successful in school, right? It's impossible, because that's a matter of equity. If you're starting so far behind where the expectation is that you would be, then obviously you're going to finish behind as well. So what sorts of things would you want Proud Academy to do to ensure success? I think it's one thing to create an environment that you're looking for 7 through 12 eventually, right? So 7, 8,
That's
9,
the plan
10.
at this point. Right now we have K through 8.
As-
People have expressed an interest in coming, and 13 of them. So
Well, within the campus, it's one thing to create that safe and open and affirming environment. It's another to know that your job is to prepare them to go out into this world.
well, one of part of our mission statement is to empower students to have a voice. So we plan on providing them with opportunities to have a voice when they're ready to do so. And one of the thoughts that I used to be a Stonewall speaker, and that meant that I would go around with a panel of people who were in the LGBTQ community, and we would speak at schools, even at auditoriums filled with teachers and students. The challenge is that we were all old, so we're all old people speaking to young people. I want to take the Proud Academy students, and even during the day, we'll take them on our little, Proud Academy van, and we'll go to a school and have 5 or 6 youth from the school speaking. Here's how this behavior impacts me. When teacher A does this, this is how I feel. Because I really believe that if teachers hear that, they will, number one, change. And number two, it gives youth like Taryn an amazing voice.
Yes.
And an opportunity to be heard. And that's pretty powerful stuff. So we're trying to prepare them for the world outside of the safety net of Proud Academy.
It's not our place as adults to tell you what you need. It's our job to empower you to tell us what you need, and then it's our job to make that happen.
Plus, if I may add, we're cognizant of the fact that our students are impacted by trauma. So number one, we get that and we understand that. Sometimes in a public school, it's like, I'm sorry, I have a math curriculum to get through,
Right.
and the test scores are failing, and I can't focus on the social emotional needs of a kid because I have an agenda to do. So I understand that teachers are stressed as well, but we will have the SEL component in place. We hope to have a trauma-informed person full-time on staff, counseling services available. We'll have a wellness suite in there, even like a quiet room. So if a student, instead of in-school suspension, they get to walk to a quiet room that's cushy like this and sit there and just reflect.
These are remarkably comfortable couches, by the way, Rebecca.
you.
I might not be leaving.
You're welcome to move in.
I hope you've got a fridge, because
Mini fridge and a microwave. I was just going to say that your T levels.
I have high enough. I'm on testosterone, and I have a high enough testosterone level that I was able to get off puberty blockers,
oh, wonderful.
which is a big deal. So I don't have to get a jab in the leg every month, but I still need to get a blood test every 4 months, which isn't fun. Yeah, that's a big deal. I have a T range that's close to cis males.
That's terrific. Physically, how did it feel being on puberty blockers versus T? Puberty blockers just stops things,
Puberty
right?
blockers, the ones that I took specifically stopped estrogen.
Right.
So basically it stopped estrogen and like only let testosterone I was taking circulate through my body.
That was just an exciting milestone to hit.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I know
Yeah.
there are a lot of kids that I know can't have that. I want to say that being on hormones doesn't make you it doesn't make you like stuck in like the body that you are. You're a trans man and you don't have access to testosterone. That doesn't make you any less of a man.
Well said.
It's definitely easier said than done though, because I know there's definitely a lot of dysphoria and emotional baggage that comes with that. And I know it's very, very difficult as a transgender person to actually love yourself and love the body that you live in currently, because if you can't change that, then that's really hard. I genuinely believe that everyone should have access to that.
Right. Your identity is
Yeah.
valid regardless. Mom, let me ask you, because we started going there a second ago, and this is something that I've discussed often with parents of trans kids, is finding that line between what is their story and what is yours. Particularly once you step up, you want to just be able to say, oh yeah, I went through that too. How do you find that line between what is Taryn's story to tell and what is yours?
I check in with him often, a lot of checking in with him. And I mean, you saw it before. Like, can I share this? I'm not just going to blurt it out without your permission. But through our conversations and, over the last couple of years, Taryn has always been very much an open book. He expresses that he wants his story to be told, and that he usually will tell me, you can share whatever you want. There's some things that I will still check in because I just wonder, is that too much information, or who can I share this with?
Right.
Is this public information or okay with family? So anytime I question it, I don't share it unless I'm able to check in with him and see if it's okay.
Because you have that sort of third step of with family and friends in a counseling, in a therapeutic session where there's an understood respect for privacy.
Right.
And then is something like this where you're talking to a microphone and you don't know who's listening.
Right. And I do a lot of professional development trainings, and I include some information about Taryn and about our journey as a family, which I think helps people to understand a little better and maybe to relate a little better. But I always have him look over my PowerPoints and I say, like, is this all okay? Is there anything that, you don't want me sharing? So, and I actually share that while I'm sharing about him. I always say, I am sharing this with his permission.
And I checked, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I checked because I think it's important that people know that often that is not the case, and this is very personal and private.
Right.
And if I may jump in, because I am just so moved by this moment. You are so lucky, Taryn, to have such an amazing mom. And I never met your dad, but to be with supportive parents like that, that's like, I'm like verklempt, because that is not the narrative of so many youth. I used to run workshops 20 years ago, but it was for the New Haven Pride Center. And kids were kicked out of their homes because as soon as they disclose something, and especially our Black and brown community who feel double marginalized. And so when youth can't go home to a safe environment and they end up homeless, we have a crisis here because 40% of homeless youth are in the LGBTQ community. So we need to address that. So Proud Academy's long-term vision is to have a housing component as well.
Oh.
So not only for those youth who are traveling maybe an hour, to get to Proud Academy, but to have a dormitory style setup. And they could either stay for the week and go home on weekends, or if they're coming from other states, because the closest one to us would be the Harvey Milk School in New York, and then we're it. So
Well, that's I think on your website you say you're first in Connecticut, fifth in the nation. Now I found three. So help me out. The Harvey Milk, of course, in New York.
Harvey Milk went first in 1985.
85.
The Alliance in Milwaukee,
Yep.
Wisconsin.
And then there was something with
Then there's-
Magical in the. Unfortunately, they had chosen
Before
Magical.
the Magic City
in-
Acceptance Academy, there is Magic City Acceptance Academy in Alabama.
Right.
The founding principal is Michael Green, who is a LGBTQ person, and said we need a school, and we're going to build it even in Alabama. Do you know, year 2 they've doubled their enrollment, so people aren't going
wonderful.
away. And you know what? Only 45% of the kids in that school are LGBTQ. The other 55% are cisgender, but they just want a safe space too.
Right.
And they know if their trans kids are being treated with respect, they're going to be treated with respect, And then the other school is the Albert Einstein Academy. And that is in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So Proud Academy actually started a partnership with all the schools in the nation, and our next meeting is on February 1st. So we have a United States partnership. We felt the need to support each other in a time of toxicity and
Indeed.
where drag queens are being targeted and hate crimes are going up. So we're standing united, and here we are. There's good and bad happening. So because there's so much visibility, and because of social media, somebody like Taryn gets to say, oh my gosh, yes, that person is just like me, and it gives people more permission to come out. The other side says, oh, everybody's getting these ideas to be trans because of social media. I'm like, nope, I don't think it happens that way, So it's nice to have a platform where you get to representation matters, and social media does that to us.
Yeah.
So I want to say along the lines of that, like how people also say that like people are too young to be around these kinds of things. I was listening, well, this was probably not the most appropriate thing for a middle schooler to be listening to, but I listen to Rent a lot.
Oh.
I love Rent. It's such a good show. But knowing about transgender people, for example, like Angel, and like gay and lesbian people, and like struggles like that, didn't take away from my innocence. I was still watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and picking my nose. I was
At the same time?
Oh, it was a skill.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
No.
We'll come back. We'll do another episode on because I have questions.
And you know what I hear a lot from parents? My kids just want to be kids.
Right.
They don't want to have this cortisol being released constantly to be super vigilant and so stressed out. I just want to do, hang out with people and pick my nose and watch Ninja Turtles and, what I mean, do basic kid things. And our LGBTQ youth don't have that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, because like right now I'm trying to desperately relive the childhood that I never had, because I had classical female childhood. It's not my parents' fault. I just wanted to disclose that because my mom's right next to me and she's looking at me.
That's okay.
Okay. Yeah, you didn't know. It's fine. There are some things that I like. If anything, being closeted takes more away from a childhood than knowing about somebody who is transgender or part of the LGBTQ community. You just lose that part of yourself, that representation. You're confused, you're scared, and I know especially like for me, I didn't understand why nobody liked playing sports with me. I just want to play football.
Yeah.
During recess, I just wanted to do that. I didn't understand like why I didn't get, lightsabers on Christmas and instead got Barbie dolls. Basically what I'm trying to say is that being accepting of your kid and like letting them know about these kinds of things will not do anything to them. If anything, it will help them have the childhood that they want and that they deserve.
Right.
Well, also what it does is it opens the line of communication between parents and children.
Yeah,
It's like, hey, my
exactly.
parents could talk about this subject. I'm not in the LGBTQ community, but it lets me know that I could talk to them about anything.
Exactly, yeah. I don't get the big deal exactly with, oh, same-sex couples, gross, children are too young for that, but they're perfectly fine watching straight people. I know one of the main things is it's not natural. Well, then explain why penguins can be gay sometimes. Explain why fish can literally change their genders.
Depending on temperature.
Yeah. I don't get it. Like, people fight so hard to keep things the way that they're supposed to be and what's natural. There are still some states that still have the trans panic law,
Right.
which means people will get away with murder by justifying it by saying, oh, the person I killed was trans, which
Right.
is ridiculous because that person was just walking down the street, you know?
Right. Let me bring it back to the school for a second, because I know that you guys have a big event coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to make sure we talk about that and how we can support the school. But start with this event. It's on the 26th, is that right?
Yes, it's National School Choice Week throughout the entire country, from January 21st to the 28th. And what that means, it's an opportunity for schools, even public schools, but private schools, charter schools, magnet schools, to showcase what they bring to the table. So we encourage parents and students to come so we can say, hey, we have this school and this is what we hope to provide and plan to provide and so on. So that is what will be happening at Southern Connecticut State University, with whom we partnered. And I have to give a shout out to Joe Bernalino because he's an out president of the university. And this event will be at the ballroom in the Michael J. Adante Student Center from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We will have student performers. We will have an amazing keynote speaker called Celeste Lacine, the co-founder of the Trevor Project.
Oh, we are
Celeste will be
so
there.
grateful for the Trevor Project.
So please sign up on our website at www.proudacademyct.org. It is a free event. We'll have pizza and entertainment and paneled speakers. So please, please, please show up. You're going to love it.
I know doing it is important because we don't have that much of an accepting society, especially in today's current political climate and
How
like,
much,
social.
Taryn, how much of that seeps through to you on a day-to-day basis? How much of that rhetoric, that hateful legislative agenda, how much does that affect you?
It affects me on a daily basis.
Does it really?
Yes, it does. I've caught people taking pictures of me behind my back, like, to make fun of me. That actually happened the first day of school. That was interesting. Like, as soon as I stepped foot in the building, got into the cafeteria, bam, someone's Snapchat story.
And it wasn't to say how stunningly handsome you are?
No.
They missed an opportunity because you are stunningly handsome.
Absolutely.
The person who did it took a picture of, like, me and the rest of my friends who I sit with, and, like, just to, like, goof on us, basically. Not fun. I've been jumped in the hallway once. That was not fun. I have a friend who's been, like, shoved into a locker because he wore eyeliner one day. And, like, all of these incidents happened in places that didn't have cameras, which was,
Of course.
or, like, didn't catch it on camera, which I was like, that's a school security issue. Anyways.
If I may interject, there's
Sorry.
been some research done, and I can't articulate that now, but the gist of it is the youth and even adults who have the biggest problem with somebody who's different, whether trans or gay or whatever, is probably somebody who's questioning themselves. Because when I sit down with people of my age group, and even the young person that we know who's on my board, we made fun of gay people. I used to make fun of gay people because in psychology it's projection. If I'm making fun of them, then nobody's going to think I am. So it's almost like a protective behavior. So maybe if that's something that we throw out to people, why are you bullying? Is there something, within you that's you're questioning? Maybe there'll be less of that because they don't want people to think that.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Just throwing it out there. I know we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, we probably
Oh.
should. Taryn, I just wanted to say how incredibly impressed I am with how articulate you are and how brave you are to, as Patty was describing, to have a voice, to be able at your age to say what you want, what you need. I was too scared to be able to do that at your age. And so it's incredibly impressive to sit here and talk with you. And I also want to echo what was said earlier, that please appreciate your mom and the support.
I do.
Because
I do.
so many trans folk, queer folk in general.
For the people that don't have the opportunity, I want to, since I'm lucky enough to be here right now, I want to kind of be that voice. I know not everyone has the same experience as me, but we all have one thing in common, which is that we are part of the LGBTQ community. And so those people out there that can't get their voice across, maybe it's because of their parents or their friends or like just society in general, I want to help them. I want to help them by like being their voice and like sharing my story to help people like kind of realize that if they have a similar situation, that they're not alone at all. You may definitely feel like you're alone, but trust me, there's people that like walking around you who feel the exact same way, but there's gonna be somebody who will like actually listen and be there for you and will hear your voice.
I want to thank all three of you so much. This has been wonderful. Anything else we should bring up, talk about? Anything else you want to get out there before we roll up the mics?
I just want to say as a parent that, I'm so thrilled that Proud Academy is starting. Part of me is just so sad that it wasn't many years sooner, because it would have been so much easier. It would be so much easier to send Taryn to school every day there than it is now in our reality. And so I just really, as much as I regret that he wasn't able to grow up in that school, I'm so hopeful and thankful that that's going to exist for other kids.
Coming up on Transqat. Next episode, I'll be talking to legislator, arts administrator, author, and artist John Kilachy. On January 27th, I'll be attending the first event conference of the trans community of New England. I'll be presenting 2 sessions entitled May Your Story Be Told. Conference attendees will have the opportunity to tell brief stories about their lives and their transitions, and then I'll cobble those stories together into most likely 2 episodes. This has been Transqat. I'm Claire McCarthy. Thanks for listening. Let's talk soon.
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece. Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved. Join us on the web at transqat.com. That's TRANSQAT.com. There, you'll find links to Transqat, the blog, writing projects, speaking engagements, and more. You can also meet the team who thought spelling cat with a Q was a good idea. Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Leave us a comment on whatever platform you use to stream this podcast. Just remember to be kind. She has enough self-esteem problems already. To reach Claire with a question or a suggestion for an upcoming episode, just use the contact page at the website or email her directly at crmtranscat@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.